Hello, and welcome to another episode of Purlfect Pairings. My name is Gayanne, she, her.
And my name's Nicole, and my pronouns are she and her. And we want to start today by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we're filming. So we are here in Melbourne, which is Naarm in Aboriginal language, and we are filming on the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. We'd also like to pay our respects to elders past and present. And we acknowledge the often fraught relationship between Indigenous land rights and Australian farming. And we just want to recognise the incredible contribution of Indigenous Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people to the fibre community over the millennia. So what are we here today to talk about?
So today is all about highlighting and showcasing local designers from Australia and New Zealand.
So we are doing this again as part of support for Louis and Lola. And if you watched our other episode on hand dyeing, I couldn't pronounce that then either. Louis and Lola, which is a beautiful indie dyer based in, are they in
Tasmania?
Tasmania. And so they are having a knit along or a crochet along that is year long and is available to participate in as long as you are using yarn and designers from Australia and New Zealand. So the hashtags for that, if you do want to participate, are hashtag 2023 love local with a K for knit along, or love local, think local, with a C for a crochet along. Now we are going to, Gayanne has done some hardcore research today. I'm going to sit here and politely smile at the camera because I am editing queen and she is our researching queen, so she has a lot more to say.
Look, I love researching new patterns and designers and going through that whole process of discovery, and I like it so much that I actually have to contain my pattern curation time to like a set time per week.
When is it usually?
So it's Friday nights, Friday evenings,
Yeah.
when I get home from work. We normally do a takeaway dinner on a Friday, so I kick back on the couch and we'll go through my pairing later, my beverage pairing that I normally have with my pattern curation.
And I love it because I don't need to spend that much time on Ravelry at all because I can very easily get lost there. So I just wait because Gayanne totally knows my style, and usually Friday night or Saturday morning I'll just get like these little text messages with, oh, this is new, I think you might like this, and she's right, always right, so then I can just favorite them and spend my time knitting, or these days editing instead of Ravel researching.
I'm going to start today with 3, I guess, kind of heavy hitters that most people will likely already know, and just touch on them briefly and then get to some people who hopefully you will be able to discover through this episode. So the top 3, I think, that I know about in Australia would be Helen Stewart, Jackie Verbeek, and Amba O'Brien. They all have an incredible catalog of patterns, especially Helen and Amba have probably hundreds of patterns. I haven't counted them all, but there's multiple pages. Jackie, I think has a few less, but you will likely know the Snow Gum shawl. I think that's been favorited over 800 times. It's beautiful. If you don't know about it, go have a look at it. Helen Stewart, I think I put the Silver River shawl in your shawl advent patterns. And then I've got a pattern of Amba's in my queue. It's called the Moonflowers shawl, because I'm really dead keen to start trying some mosaic knitting, and that's Mosaic.
And it's quite it's a relatively simple mosaic to start with too.
Yeah,
I think she actually sort of guides you through it. I think when you read the description in Ravelry, it sort of indicates that there's a little bit of a guiding that goes on there. Now, before we go any further, we are going to have a heck of a lot of patterns that we talk about today. They are all going to be in our show notes. So maybe just keep a mind around the ones that you really like. Obviously, pictures will pop up and just to keep you informed, but everything should be a nice, easy, clicky link in our show notes, so you don't have to get lost in the whirlwind that is Ravelry. This is what we do for you.
I will say I also have a bundle in my favorites on Ravelry, so if you are on Ravelry and want to be my Ravelry friend, I think you can look at my bundles, and I have a low-cal bundle where I've stored a bunch of these patterns, and I'm on Ravelry as GW Knits,
which we'll link to in the
link
show
to that.
notes, absolutely.
The next designer I want to talk about is Susanna Cartman. Now, in our episode with Emily from Maker, she mentioned Susanna as well. Now, Susanna has also popped up at the She's Crafty Yarn Market, so I'm kind of hoping that she's there again, because I really want to, I didn't really know who she was the last time I went, and now I'm like, whoa.
Did she have a stall there?
She did.
Oh, selling
she did. Patterns and some kits.
Oh, there you go.
As well. No, it was great. That's the yarn market I told you wasn't great, so you didn't feel like you missed out, but it really was great. Sorry.
And just to add insult to injury, I can't go again this year because I'm working. So, but I might make it. The She's Crafty Market is they're having a second one in Castlemaine, which Gayanne can't get to, so we might
we'll swap off.
Swap.
Susanna has some gorgeous patterns and uses quite a bit of brioche, which I really enjoy knitting. Her EXP sweater, the yarn that's in the sample is also from a lot of local hand dyers, and that's got a beautiful fade gradient underneath. And I'm so excited for this new sweater that she has coming out in it's the latest pom-pom. As we're recording it, I'll go pre-order it after we're done recording. It's called Overlay, but there's already a page for it on Ravelry, so
I haven't seen that yet. I'll have to check it out.
So fun. It's so fun. It's multiple colors. You'll see the photo. It's great. It's great. Now, another designer who has, I think she does quite a bit of designing for companies in North America, is Katrina Walzer. Now, Katrina also has a wonderful YouTube channel show where she shares her knits and some of her designs coming up. So check that out as well. But I'll highlight a few of her patterns that I really enjoy. So the first is the Queen of Spades top. Now this is a kind of a tank top, but I like it because it has wider, it's got a wider shoulder than your standard kind of narrow tank top. So I think that would be easier to wear. It's got a little bit of detailing along the side, but is otherwise quite plain and can be made with, I think for my size, which is generally like a medium, about 3 skeins of fingering weight yarn. The next pattern of hers that I love is the trigonometric shawl. This is in Making Magazine, I think volume 4. I couldn't figure out how to get the pattern on Ravelry, but surely I'll be able to get, I say surely, I'll find a way. There was something about it being like an ebook.
Yeah.
But Katrina, if you watch, could you just put a comment on how I can find this pattern? But it's a triangular shaped shawl, again, using brioche, and I love brioche stitch, and it's one color brioche. So what that means is that there's no brioche purling. I'm not anti-purling, but you see quite a bit when you read these patterns. The designers are quick to point out that, you know, there's no purling involved. But I do knit faster than I can purl, but
yes. I think that's a common experience. Unless you're a Portuguese knitter. The Portuguese style of knitting, is it Portuguese where you have the yarn around your neck?
Oh,
apparently it's actually
quicker
to purl with that.
I suppose once you get it,
Yeah.
like once you're in the flow of it, but I reckon it would take me a while.
I gave it a go because there was a big section of the twists and turns that was purling, and so I gave it a go, and it wasn't too bad. And a friend of mine also gave it a go, and she now thinks it might be her preferred way of knitting.
Really?
So yes. Anyway, Google that, Portuguese knitting. If you have a project where you need to do a lot of purling, and if you're not a purl lover, normally.
The last, I know, I don't know where the purl hate comes from, but I mean, it's just a bit slower.
It's a bit slower.
Anyway.
It's a hate for the impatient knitter.
I know, I do like to have projects finished, right? That's why we love raglans, top-down sweaters that you can just knit away. Anyway, I wanted to mention one more of Katrina's patterns, which was the Shayna Shrug, and this one I love because it just looks so kind of cuddly, and I think it would be a great sweater for Melbourne because it's not too heavy, not too light. Like, it's a good year-round kind of throw on.
Oh, so it's not a sweater, it's kind of like a...
No, it's got like a, it's open in the front, so it's more of a...
Oh, like a wearable blanket.
Yeah, something that you want, like something you want to put on, like with a top like this in the evenings when it gets a bit cool.
Awesome. There are there's quite a few more to go through. So these are some of the ones that we weren't already that familiar with, right? So
that's right.
The first one we want to talk about is Libby Jonson, who designs under the name Truly Myrtle. And actually, if you go back and look at our episode with Great Ocean Road, Libby has made a hat using the yarn from Great Ocean Road. Isabel mentions it in the episode, which is the Bobby beanie, which is a really cute little lots of little bobbles on the beanie. I think possibly one of my favorites and one that I'm definitely planning on making soon is the rattan. Is that how you pronounce it? How do you pronounce it? I think in Australia we say rattan, maybe rattan, R-A-T-T-A-N. Anyway, it's probably on your screen right now. But it is a one skein project, and it's it's designed to be quite light and loose. I have a very dear friend who feels the heat quite a bit, so even in winter she doesn't tend to wear very heavy clothing, or very, very lots of scarves and that sort of thing. But I've got that design, I've got that in mind as a gift. So it's got beautiful texture in it.
I think that would be a great gift knit. And now that you mentioned texture, I think texture is a real theme throughout these patterns. So maybe there's something in the water here in the Southern Hemisphere that all the designers have a great eye, I think, for texture. And actually, maybe I'll talk about the Georgie sweater then next. That's got an incredible texture to it, made with an eyelet stitch. Now, this pattern was originally published in Lane/Lina magazine. I think it was issue 8 by memory. And it's just beautiful. And the yarn is a wool silk blend. so it will have incredible drape and luster. So this one, I'm just want to knit it. I think it's DK weight, so I'll have to find some yarn, but I don't think that'll be a problem.
No.
The Paloma t-shirt.
I haven't seen this one.
It's beautiful. It's boxy, and I love a boxy sweater.
You do? Yes.
It's got a bit of a lace panel down the sleeve, which you could take out, I think, if you weren't that keen to do lace. But it's got the best female empowerment description as well. So go find it and read the description. It's great.
I'm tempted now.
Yeah. And then the last pattern of Libby's that I wanted to mention is called the Outlaw. And the Outlaw came out a few years ago. It's got a very similar construction to the Andrea Mowry Big Cozy sweater. But the really cool thing about this, why I'm so excited actually about this pattern, you can probably feel my excitement, is that it's knit sideways. So you basically knit from here back and forth and back and forth and back and forth rather than knitting this way.
Yeah.
And you knit the back, and then you put on these tighter cuffs.
Right.
And a neckline. I think it comes in 5 sizes, but it's so it's not a huge size range, but it's quite open and pretty big. So it's meant to have like quite an unstructured look.
One thing I think might be worth talking about just when we're talking about size, we had a really valuable comment on an earlier episode from one of our watchers who mentioned that some of the patterns that we were talking about weren't size inclusive. Inclusion is incredibly important to us.
Mm-hmm.
As much as possible, we will indicate when things are size inclusive. And also we would love to hear about more designers that are really openly size inclusive. So I've done a little bit of research on it. I think there was an interesting sort of little summary that was published by someone that I cannot remember, but I will link to it in the comments, where it was almost like a scientific sort of paper where they looked at patterns that were labelled as size inclusive and what the general sort of summary was. So generally size inclusion should have about 9 different sizes available, with a variation, or sorry, a different thin width between sizes that is reasonable, and then going up to about a 64-inch chest or bust measurement. That is what I've learnt, but I'm sure that that's not the be-all and end-all of it. So if you know of some really good size-inclusive designers, particularly Australian and New Zealand ones, please do mention them here, and we might organise to give a shout-out to them on a later episode. But generally, it is something that I think is really important, and it does really interest me, and so we will, as much as possible, try and indicate in our show notes when things are size inclusive, just to assist people in helping to find patterns that are going to work for them. So the next one we want to talk about, the next designer, is a Kiwi woman, or Kiwi person, I'm not sure how she identifies, but living in Melbourne, Amy Vandala. Her Instagram account is Baroque Pearl, P-U-R-L, so already I like her. Amy, if you happen to see this, if someone tags you in it, we would love to have a chat to you. I'm really, she's got amazing colour work in her designs. Again, that was a little shake from our production manager, Murphy, over here, Gayan's dog, so he might occasionally contribute. But yeah, so back to Amy. She does some really beautiful color work designs. I'm in love with the star stuff hat. It just looks really magical, and I think there's matching like mittens and a scarf to go with it. I love a beret style hat as well. There's also the beeswax hat, which again, like texture and that sort of honeycomb kind of structure. I'm thinking maybe I might use my hand-dyed Tandy yarn to try the beeswax hat. If you so if you go back and watch if you haven't seen it already, our episode about hand dyeing, we attended a little dyeing workshop and made a few different skeins. So yeah, Amy's got some fabulous stuff. Lots of fun. They look like really fun projects to knit as well, don't they? Like lots of different things going on.
I've seen on Instagram recently somebody took the pattern from the beeswax hat and created a sweater.
Oh wow!
Yeah, Amy was really supportive of that. I think shared on her Instagram. So
hopefully that person collaborates with Amy and decides to share the pattern. Although doing something for one person and then having to share a pattern is a bit hard, right? That's why there's these talented designers out there.
Yeah.
So yeah, Amy does a lot of the stuff is more accessory based stuff, so less garments.
That's right.
The next one we were going to chat about is Yoko Johnston. So Yoko, as her name suggests, is Japanese, now living in Sydney, and so much texture. Particular faves are the camellia leaf hat, which again is that sort of slouchy sort of beret style, and the shinobi sweater.
Love the shinobi sweater. Uses twisted stitches and a twisted mesh, which I have never seen before. In the pattern description, it says that I think it's another word for ninja.
Oh yes, that's right.
Which I love. I love like a little secret meaning.
Yeah.
And it's got these beautiful panels of ribbing that break up the mesh along the side, and I think that actually will help fit as well, because frequently I'm having difficulty with deciding what size to knit.
So it's quite a figure hugging sweater. Maybe even more of a top than a sweater. It does fit quite tightly, so it might be the sort of thing where you just wore like a little camisole or something underneath and wore it more like a dressy sort of knitted top, rather than trying to layer it over a t-shirt or something like that. But yeah, really quirky, interesting designs from Yoko. Absolutely fabulous. And then the other one that I wanted to call out is Georgie Nicholson, and Georgie's based somewhere in Victoria.
Yeah,
somewhere in our local state.
I think she might be down the Bellarine Peninsula.
Okay. And so she has a cardigan called My Favorite, and it is one of my favorites. It's
appropriate.
Yeah, it's I just love the texture of the cuffs on the sleeves, and that mimicked little texture in the yoke. There's I think the one that it's sort of designed with 3 buttons, but in the project some people have commented that they've sort of extended it out and done more buttons. I possibly might do a more button version, but it's very high up on my list of things to do, and I already have yarn earmarked for it.
Fabulous.
The alpaca with pink silk
yes.
that we bought, or that I bought when we visited Fibre Naturally, so you can go back and check out that episode. There's a lovely hat in her patterns called the lavender hat, and it's just a really simple, again, sort of slouchy beanie design, just elegant, sort of just a small amount of detail on it. And you have a bit of a fave as well,
I
don't you?
do. She's got this sweater called this Summer Festival sweater, which is done in the most vibrant yellow. It's beautiful, with this eyelet floral motif along the bottom.
And pockets. It's got pockets. It's got little cute pockets. So.
You probably do need a pocket if you're going to a festival.
Oh, definitely. Yep. Yep. You might need to. If you're me, you might need to make bigger pockets than the ones. But yeah, super.
I will say we don't talk a lot about children or adolescent patterns, but Georgie does have quite a large selection of youth garments as well.
Yep. Probably more youth garments
than adult
maybe. When you go to her Ravelry, there's actually a bundle that is like clothing for adults. Just I guess because there are a lot of really lovely kids patterns, and what I do love is that sometimes she'll do a pattern for a child, and there's been so much love about it that she'll make adult-sized versions as well.
And then you can have a mommy and me kind of thing going on. Another designer who does both children and adult garments, it's called OGE Knitwear. It's run by a woman named Vera, and they do a lot of children's garments. They have a sweater though that I love called the Binks, and it's got beautiful color work on the yoke. I don't think it's actually raglan. I think they just do yoke increases, and then that detail is mimicked on the sleeve and then along the bottom of the sweater. So what that means is that if you have a random skein, I think you're okay with one skein for that contrast color, and then you can just add your main color to that, because if you watched our hand dyeing episode, we have a difference of opinion about just buying a single skein.
Which I like single skein,
and I am not. No, I've had some single skein regret before, which has caused me to not have a love of single skeins. Now, the next designer that I want to talk about is Marzena Kolaczek. I believe that she's Polish, now living in Sydney, so we will adopt her as you do in Australia.
As we do in Australia.
And she has made a sweater called the Kookaburra sweater, and it just doesn't get more Aussie than that.
I haven't seen this one. Does it have a kookaburra on it?
No, it's got this triangle. It's possibly brioche or some kind of rib triangles along the sweater that look probably more like kookaburra beaks. The kookaburra bird has a quite large beak. Indeed, when I lived in Perth, they used to swoop when there were like large picnics, like large groups of people picnicking. They would swoop, and I actually saw somebody trying to eat a chicken wing and like literally had the chicken wing at their mouth, and the kookaburra came in and grabbed the...
We have all kinds of dangerous animals. Even our birds are
I have another really funny kookaburra story. Sorry, this is off script. It was actually the first morning that we had arrived in Australia as immigrants, and I heard a kookaburra laughing, and I was like, oh my god, do they have monkeys? Because it sounds, I'm not sure how, I don't think we can put a kookaburra laughing sound, but Google it.
Yeah. I'm a bit worried there might be a copyright against kookaburra laughing sounds, but they are.
They do sound a little bit like a monkey when they really are on it.
Very strange. I mean, it is a laugh, but it's also a very strange noise.
And they're actually beautiful when they're making that noise too. They puff up and
I think it's like, is it a mating cry? I
don't know.
Anyway.
Okay, so a few weeks ago I posted on Instagram, well, it was probably a while back now, but I posted a photograph of the Arcturus shawl that was designed by Shara Lambeth, who designs under the name of Shara Made. She also has a YouTube channel, so definitely check her out as well. And I was so taken by Arcturus because, again, it's mosaic, it's multiple colors, but this was another one where there's no purling. So, because my understanding, and I'm still learning about mosaic knitting, so I'll preface the comment with that, is that you only work one color at a time, so the other colors you just slip that stitch, so and then you knit on the opposite side. So I'm super excited to start that pattern at some point.
And it looks, I'm just reading show notes over her shoulder here. It looks like Shara is Melbourne based as well. So
that's right.
We might harass you too.
She has another pattern that I got excited about called the Appiday Mitts. Now, I've never done a hand, like a mitten or glove or anything hand oriented.
I've crocheted them but never knitted them.
This has a really like a honeycomb pattern as well. And the other thing that really drew me to this was that there's, I think, like 200 meters of fingering weight yarn to make both. And I was like,
oh yeah, mittens are a little project. Yeah.
Another single skein quick knit, like tick, accomplishment. Because I think sometimes we feel like we're just making these sweaters that take weeks and weeks to knit, excuse me, and kind of not getting anywhere with them. And you just want something that's
You might have
done.
guessed we're both a little bit achievement focused.
That's funny. And the last, okay. The last pattern that I wanted to talk about was the Fern shawl, which is a gorgeous brioche. It's 2 colors, but it uses contrasting colors and only one skein. So yeah, this is another always on my radar about when it says one skein, or if I can see that it's, you know, kind of around the 380, 400 meters of 4-ply. I'm pretty sure I've got some of that in my stash. So I'm super excited because brioche is, again, one of my favorite techniques. And it's just got beautiful textures and it's beginner friendly.
Excellent.
And speaking of brioche, if you have watched us from the beginning, I did a shawl that had a section of it in Honeycomb Brioche. It was the first time I had ever done this technique.
We talk about it in episode 2, which is the Advent shawl progress reveal.
Thank you for remembering that. And I love this technique so much that I just wanted to highlight a couple of patterns that I found in the Australian New Zealand list that actually use this stitch, because I'm quite excited to make it. The first one is the Honeycomb Brioche Cowl by Athelia O'Connor. And I have some beautiful Louis and Lola DK earmarked for this cowl. I just need some, I don't know, a day to cast it on. And the other one is from, there's a Honeycomb Brioche scarf that was designed by Emily Baldwin
of Maker Maker. So if you go back and watch episode 3, we interview the lovely Emily. She's really charming at Maker Maker, which is our local yarn store, and she has some of her own designs as well. And her designs are really clear and easy to follow. I've made a couple of them over the time, so they're quite good if you're new to something as well. She really breaks it down, and she actually does talk about that a bit in the episode with her, is that she's quite focused on the designs that she does sort of being at beginner level or sort of, you know, advanced beginner, making sure that they're accessible, and encouraging people to try new things.
I think it's also a bonus because I'm pretty sure that pattern is free.
A lot of her stuff is.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Maybe buy some yarn from Maker and support the free pattern. Well, there's lots there.
Yeah, I hope this is giving you some inspiration. It's probably been like a bit of a slideshow of my Ravelry bundle. But I just really enjoy the process of curating these patterns.
And I enjoy that you enjoy the process of curating these patterns. I will enjoy finding out more about them as I'm editing this episode.
Okay, so the Friday night beverage is a Negroni, which is a gin-based drink made with gin. I think it's
Campari.
It's Campari. I'm just trying to think of whether it's sweet vermouth or...
We really need to research our cocktails before we start filming.
Right.
So what happens here is Gayanne's very delightful husband makes her a Negroni every Friday night while she's doing her pattern curation. And so she doesn't need to know what goes in it. She just needs to relax at that point. So it doesn't matter what's in a Negroni. It's a great drink. But what we're going to talk about here is the gin that goes in the Negroni. So this is Darling Distillery, and it's very, very local to us. So Clifton Hill, which is just sort of
next suburb.
It's basically it's just sort of near North Fitzroy. A lot of people sort of think Clifton Hill and North Fitzroy are the same thing. Clifton Hill's kind of one suburb east. Pretty tiny suburb, very lovely suburb, very, very old hotel in Clifton Hill, which I think is where this is distilled. So it's the Royal Hotel in Clifton Hill is apparently 130 years old. And this is an Aussie gin, lots of bright citrus, orange. They use some Tasmanian pepperberry, which gives a lovely little bit of spice and heat. Lemongrass, coriander, rosemary, green tea. And the last thing that they use in here is rooftop honey. Now there's a really lovely story about rooftop honey is a local organization, maybe might be the way to talk about them now. Australia is one of the few countries in the world that doesn't have significant issues with the varroa mite, which is a mite that decimates bee populations. So, and it's a lot of it is due to our geographical isolation. So Rooftop Honey is a company that not only makes and jars up honey which you can purchase, and particularly it's Melbourne based, so there's a lot here, but I've definitely seen it in other states as well. But the project, I think, was originally designed to have hives on top of some of the tallest buildings in Melbourne, and particularly close around where the port is. So there's quite a big port, shipping port in Melbourne. The idea being that if any bee diseases or any problems with bee populations, they're most likely to arrive by boat. And so by monitoring those hives and monitoring their bee populations, they might be able to identify the problem before it has time to spread throughout the bee populations. And I think, in fact, towards the end of last year, there was some varroa mites picked up in some bees here. I'm not sure what happened, but so Rooftop Honey, really inspirational local business. So I think maybe we should wrap it up there, shall we?
Yeah.
If you liked this episode, please give us a thumbs up.
And consider subscribing if you like the content that we're producing.
We also love your comments.
Love them.
And yeah, particularly if you've got any other designers we should check out,
Please let us know.
And I hope that this episode has been a lovely source of inspiration for you. Yeah, I mean, there's so if you are an Australian or New Zealand designer, I'm sorry if we didn't give you a shout out.
No, there are so many.
There are so many. So we've just picked a few of the ones that caught our eye at the moment, and hopefully we might do this again sometime in the future and give a shout out to more people. So thank you very much for watching today.
Yes.
And
enjoy the rest of your day or your evening.
Happy knitting.